Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video because I do have a bonus pair in store. So make sure you stay to the end to find out which pair that is. But yeah, guys, I'll go for my trade of the week first, and then we'll progress onto the video. So if there's a particular pair you're looking at, feel free to skip ahead on the timestamps. But yeah, I had a loss this week on AUD/JPY. It was a partial loss, so it wasn't a full loss, but still took an L on AUD/JPY. It seems like I just entered the trade a little bit too early. But frankly, in hindsight, it's not really looking like the best kind of market conditions to trade, really. So I'm not particularly keen to jump straight back in. But this was the trade here, looking for a push back down to the low of the wick. Did have quite a few areas to take partial, so I did close some profit into this level. Let me just use to make it a little bit darker. So yeah, I did take profit coming into this level here, around 20%. So that's why it wasn't a full loss, because I did take 20% of the position off, so I left the remaining 80% to run, which then hit stop loss. So I only lost around 60% of the total that I'll normally lose. So it was a partial loss there, but the market just didn't continue. It was a little bit too early for me to move stop loss to break even. I know some people did move their stop loss to break even, but for me, it just didn't match my criteria. Needs price to go a little bit further, create some structure before I move my stop loss to break even. So I did take a partial loss there, but essentially just looking for the market to give us another lower high. We're creating many higher highs here, giving us this kind of bowl shaped price action. So we've gone from higher highs to equal highs to lower highs. Now I'm looking for another push to the downside, back into support, and maybe even further as well. But as you can see, we haven't done that yet. And the market is still a little bit corrective. So again, I'm not too particularly keen to jump right back in. It's still making those lower highs. So my bias and my expectation of the trade could still, work out. Price could still make it down to the support, but there are other pairs this week that are looking a little bit better, which we'll go into in a second. So that was a trade for the week, but onto EURUSD. So EURUSD flew to the upside. Actually, no, that was the prior week. Flew to the upside. Here it was actually kind of just choppy. Mostly consolidation for EURUSD. This is all that kind of happened this week. And it looks like the market's starting to slow down. It has tapped in just about into the monthly level I was talking about, which was this area here. You can see this zone here, this is a bit of a fake out. Market's just about tapped into it. So it's still early doors to tell if the market's going to reject this and come straight back down or break through. It's just about tapped in the lower time frames, and by lower, I mean like the 4H and the hourly, and it's had a bit of a pullback. So I do expect to see some type of downside for EURUSD, but in terms of my analysis and my structure, the market on the daily, the 4H is technically bullish. So I'm looking for long opportunities. So you can see the lower highs the market has taken out here, breaking through that structure, and then now printed higher highs and some higher lows. So I'm looking for a pullback essentially for another higher low. For a push to the upside, it might only retest the highs and come back down and reverse and follow the higher time frame trend. But I'm actually looking at longs for EURUSD. I do think there'll be some short-term shorting opportunities. So people in the lower time frames, I do think you might be able to find some nice sells. Coming back into resistance, maybe back into these highs. I do think some nice sells will look good. But for me, I'll be focusing on basically the same areas that I was pointing out last week, which was these two levels here, 1.02 and just below 1.01. Looking at some buys and targets for this one, just right back to highs. Not gonna be too greedy, because like I said, I still have the higher time frame bias that the market is still bearish for EURUSD. So although the structure is broken, I'm not trying to be too greedy with these trades, because I do think eventually the market will turn around, and the sells later on will look very, very good when they start to develop a little bit further. But right now, I'm focused on EURUSD longs from these two positions here, so 1.02 and 1.01. And as for targets, looking just for price to come straight back to highs. Let me just tidy this up. Just straight back to highs, and that's about it, really. Maybe you might not even get there, you might form a lower high, but from as things stand, that's where I'll look to target. If I change my mind, you'll find out during the streams, but this is what I'm looking for EURUSD. Some downside there. People can look to short if they want to. It's not really my type of trade. Longs down here will look a lot better. So for EURUSD, expecting a bit of a pullback, and buys back up to highs for next week. Okay, so now on to USD JPY. So again, similar to EURUSD, basically consolidation this week, not much from the pair. Does make sense though, because we are trading at a key level, and we've had a pretty exceptional move to the downside from last week, so the market's kind of finding its feet again at this level. So buys do look good for USD JPY. You can see the higher time frame structure as well. We've got the high, higher low, high, higher low, and again high and potentially new higher low forming. So the market does look good for buys, but at the same time I wouldn't push it too far, because we do have this strong impulse which could see a correction, and then the market could, you know, potentially move further. Our higher low on the daily is all the way back down, you know, over here. The market potentially can pull back a lot further before finding its feet again and going bullish. So we do have to pay respect to the momentum that we've seen over the past week or so. So yeah, for USD buys look good. I want to see this resistance cleared first, because at the moment you just have consolidation and we could come straight back down and just mess around. You can obviously buy low of the consolidation, slightly more aggressive, because then you expect the market to hold this level. Like I said, it could still potentially go further, but you got better risk to rewards. If you're looking for more of a safer trade, buys above 140.500 look good, and into 142.500 look very good as well. And from there we could go further, but I would recommend looking to take some profit off the table and start managing the trade, because, you know, our next kind of key areas all the way up there, or you could argue coming into this area here, which is pretty far, and I do think the seller will probably look to step back in and it might come back down to this level or even to your entry price. So I would say looking at 142.500 is a very logical place to look to start taking some profit off the table and managing the trade a little bit more closely. But longs look good for JPY. I would wait for the range to break, so 140.500, retest of that, buys to 142.500, and then we could potentially go 144 and 145, but we'll just look at that resistance for now. So that's the plan going into next week for USD JPY. Okay, so now to USD CAD. So we did find some life in the market, a little bit of support formed around 1.325. I was expecting us to go a little bit further to the downside and test this area. This is where I said the buys would look good next week for USD CAD. So we came pretty close. Did see a little bit of downside there, but didn't quite make our way to go and actually test the level, but nonetheless form support around this area. So with USD CAD, you know, the current market structure on the 4H is bearish. You can see the lower lows, lower highs, very consistent in the market. So I would expect to see some resistance around here and potentially another lower high for another move back down again. So for USD CAD, I'm looking at some short-term sells for some longer-term buys. So 1.32, I'm looking at potentially the next high low forming. So if we just zoom out a little bit, you can see the overall structure of the market: high, lower, higher low, sorry, high, higher low, high, higher low, and we've got the high and potentially new higher low for another drive to the upside. That's what I'm looking at happening for USD CAD. However, the market's still bearish right now, hence looking for the one more down move, then potentially the buys later on. So again, I do expect the market to go bullish eventually, but I'm not willing to buy the market right now. Once I start seeing some more higher highs and more higher lows, so when I'll start looking for the buys and potentially that longer swing trade to the upside. But at the moment, sell is still the best bet back into 1.32, and then we'll potentially start looking for that double bottom, maybe for the reversal to the upside. So that's the plan for USD CAD. Looking at some sales to start the week, if we can hold this level, obviously, or even potentially go higher, tap into some areas up there. But for me, I'll be focusing on 1.34, looking for sales back down into 1.32, and then from there as well, start to switch my bias again and potentially start looking for some buys if the price action looks good, or I might just wait for some, wait for the market just to reverse basically before I start to look to buy. But if things do look good, I think there could be some nice buys down here. Slightly more risky because we are against this 4H trend, but nonetheless in the same direction as the higher time frames, daily, weekly, monthly, and buying off a strong daily level as well. So the confluence is there. But at the moment, sales from 1.34 look good. Looking for a pushback down to 1.32. Then we can see if we can get any buys from down there later in the week. And now on to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound this week did not hold the support, which is what I was expecting the market to do, find some feet and then continue higher. Did see some short-term buys, but eventually, as you can see, the market has broken through this low. So with Euro Pound and this new momentum, we could be coming back down to retest this support level, or most likely at least come and retest this consolidation here, which is where we snap through for a lot of momentum. So around 0.6200, if we can break through that, then most likely that double bottom area, 0.58, 0.858. So euro pound, looking at some short-term sells, I do think eventually we'll probably find our feet again and start heading higher. But since we've broken structure, momentum's failed. You can see the lower highs market has printed here. It's not looking good for euro pound at the moment, so most likely we'll probably continue lower. So looking for an up move to short back down, because right now we're breaking through the support, so not too keen placing shorts right now. But if we can have a pullback into this area here, that would be very, very nice indeed, back into 0.871, retest that structure, looking for the lower high, and then continuations to the downside. If we come a little bit higher, then potentially maybe around this sort of area here as well. So do keep an eye on 0.87400. This is the area that I'm expect the market to roll over from, but if you do go a little bit higher, the market's not perfect. Keep an eye on this level 2 for some sells, but only looking at sells this week with these lower highs, the breakup structure as well. Buys, like I said, I do think the market will find its feet eventually, but I'm gonna wait for it to start printing some higher highs and higher lows before I start looking for any long opportunities again for euro pound. So this is what I'm looking at for euro pound, looking for that pullback and then some shorts. Areas of interest 0.871 and 0.874, targets 0.86 and 0.858 for next week for euro pound. Okay, so now onto AUDUSD. So it looks like we could be seeing a major lower high forming here for this pair. I'm still looking at major moves to the downside eventually. Still looking at a pushback down to this area here and potentially going to take out that COVID low down there at 0.55. We're still trading beneath this key level here in the market at 0.7. And as long as we stay below that, I'm expecting these lows to be taking out to the downside and that overall downtrend continuing. So I'm looking at areas where potentially that next lower high could form. You can see what the market's been doing for quite some time now. Consistent major low swing highs. You know, this is a key area we could be placing in another one. Do whip out the Fibonacci, you can see adding to that confluence, coming to the 0.618 there. You know, this is a good area. If the market's going to form a lower high, this is a good area where you could end up doing that from. So looking at shorts next week for AU, coming to this level, which we're starting to reject right now. Looking at a slight pullback to the upside, potentially a bit of a double top there. Then the move to the downside, one test, second test, and then potentially you can see the shorts come through. I would say slightly aggressive because we still do have this bullish trend here for AUDUSD in the 4H time frame. So coming to this low, might want to look to manage your trade because we could find support and push up higher one more time, maybe before the market does tumble over. And maybe you could even consolidate as well. So we do have to manage the trade, you know, accordingly. But nonetheless, we know that the higher time frames on our side. So most likely we will see the market eventually, you know, respect this low and come back down. So looking for push to the downside, targets for AUDUSD, looking at a move back down into 0.65200 for next week. Again, I said I expect the market to go further, but for next week we'll keep it simple. No need to look for home run in one trade. You can take 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever trades. You know, if we're actually going to take out those lows, no need to look for one big one. Take your profit, move on to the next one. But this is what I'll be looking at for next week for AUDUSD. Short to the downside from 0.67100 back down to 0.65200 for next week. And now onto NZD CAD. So NZD CAD's still been pushing to the upside. This uptrend in the 4H still intact. The market's still consistent with these high lows and still pushing to the upside. And I'm looking at sells for NZD CAD, but as long as this structure remains or until we see some signs of reversal, you know, I'm going to be on the sidelines until that happens. And right now we actually have a very key level on the daily time frame. If I just show you guys real quick, you can see this area here. The market's tapped into this level 4 times around 0.82500. 1, 2, 3, 4, and each time, well, the 3 previous times, we did see the market make a lower low each time. So lower low, lower low, and again, major lower low. Potentially could see another one to the downside. Again, on the higher time frames, we know the market is still bearish. This could be another major lower swing high, and we could see the market start to bleed. Again, we don't need to look for anything too crazy. Potentially, we could come back down to these areas, but again, just to look for some trades for the day or trades for the week, you can find some nice sells, potentially back down to this level and start to back out the trade, because like I said, the 4H is still bullish. We could still respect this low and still continue higher. So until we actually see some structural breaks, we have to respect the bullish structure present. And when we do see those structural breaks is when we could actually be looking at that major lower high developing and a push back down to these lows. But we're still very far from that as of right now. So the sales from NZD CAD look good, but again, coming up to these areas, even that broken resistance there, you do want to start looking at taking profit quickly, and then potentially waiting for the break of structure to look for your bigger sales coming maybe later in the week, or maybe even the week after next, because we might still rally to the upside as well. But for me, I'm a bear of this market. It's coming up to a very key level where shorts will look good. We've got target here, first target 0.81900, second at 0.81, and then from there probably it would be wise to exit that position. If you go and break through, you can leave some to trickle, but yeah, I would rather look for that structure break and then just enter another position somewhere else. If we come a little bit further, don't have to enter up there to make a profitable trade. So NZD CAD shorts look good, 0.82500, keep that in mind. Target 1, target 2, and if you can break structure, we'll look for some more shorts later on, but that's what the plan is going ahead. Okay, so next up, pound NZD. So very corrective. This one, actually, I should say, choppy. It's basically consolidating. Still looking at sells. Have been doing so for the past couple of weeks since we saw that impulse leg to the downside, looking for correction, and now the next impulse. It's just been consolidating. So it's been difficult to find some good trades, or maybe in the lower time frames you can take advantage of the fluctuation, but for the next swing trade, it's been a little bit difficult. High time frames still look pretty clear to me. I'm looking at this being the next lower high of the market. We snapped underneath that key level there, so I'm expecting us to head to the next one, which is this low back down here around 1.89, 1.88. So I'm still expecting more downside into those levels, and I'm still looking at this consolidation here on the daily and the 4H, just being the market having a bit of a breather before it does continue. Two areas I'm focusing on for short opportunity: the high of the range and this level here, 1.96. This is obviously the neckline for that head and shoulders we've had a couple of weeks ago before we broke out. Now I'm looking at price either coming to test that, faking to the upside of this range, testing 1.96 and then rolling over back down to 1.89, or simply just testing the high of the range again for the upteam time and then seeing the big rollover to the downside, or third, waiting for the breakout of this low 1.915, waiting for that low to clear and then looking for the sales to the downside. All opportunities do look good. The most probable one is waiting for the low to break and then shorting, because right now we've got consolidation and you could see a nice down move, but it could be short-lived. Market could come right back to your entry price. So shorting from here, you do run that risk, and also shorting from here, you're on the risk of the market retesting, finding support and going high as well. So the most probable is waiting for the break of the low, but obviously the one with the most risk reward is the one higher up. So it's compromise whichever trade opportunity you look for. They're all valid, they're all good opportunities. But nonetheless, we'll see what the market provides us, because we might not even get the test of 1.96 either. But this is what I'm looking at, only looking for sells for pound NZD and waiting for push into 1.89. Areas of interest: break and retest of 1.915, retest of 1.945 and a retest of 1.96, and expecting us to eventually head to 1.89. Okay, so next up, CAD Yen. So CAD Yen, a little bit of consolidation as well, but it's trading at a very key level, and we've had numerous rejections, so it looks like CAD Yen could be in for a move to the upside pretty early next week, maybe, because we've already had 3 kind of strong tests. We can see these exaggerated wicks to the downside, 1, 2, 3. Market's really struggling to break through, so it could open up bullish and actually start flying on Monday, or maybe the market could come and test the level one more time. And actually, let me just map out the levels so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, which is this area here. So you can see we're having a hard time breaking through this level, and I do think with all these rejections, most likely we're going to see the market snap bullish. Again, higher time frames, the market is still bullish, which is what I've been saying with CAD Yen. The market's still creating higher highs and higher lows, and again, potentially you could see an equal low here for this double bottom and the market go bullish again, we could potentially snap through. As long as we don't break through this low here, the market on the daily is still technically, from a structural point of view, still bullish despite these strong bearish moves we've seen. So yeah, CAD Yen buys look good from 104,800, 104,700. Again, we have had a lot of momentum here, so like JPY, we could see that upside move short-lived, and we could print a lower high maybe for a reversal later on. So targets into this level do look good, and potentially even to the range here, which we broke through and they've actually got a retest of, which is 107,300 as well. So buys for CAD Yen look very good. We may get another test there, so that could give another entry signal to get involved. Stop loss below the level, maybe a bit of wiggle room to give you guys some room. But yeah, buys look good for CAD Yen, back up to 106,600 and 107,500, 107,400 we'll call it. And yeah, just take advantage of what the market's doing on the higher time frame, which is still trending to the upside. Numerous attempts to break through. This could be seen as a bit of a fake move here, maybe taking some stops. So looks like the fake move's already happened, and we could see the move to the upside. So it's up to you how you want to trade this one. You could wait for the break of this kind of trend line here, and then wait for the break above that and buy it, or you can look to jump in straight away. Obviously, waiting for the break of the trend line will give you a more probable and the safer entry, but less risk reward. So it's up to you how you want to manage that based on your own trading style. But nonetheless, as long as we hold 104,700, 104,800, I'm expecting a move to the upside back into 106,200. 106,600, sorry, and 107,500 for next week. Okay, pound USD still slowly correctly moving to the upside. As you can see, we open up around here, market still pushing to the upside. I did say for pound USD, looking at buys, because we've recently created this bullish structure here, higher highs and higher lows in the market ever since we kind of had that big sell-off back in September. So for me, for pound USD, I do still see a little bit more upside. Again, high time frames and the long-term trend is still down. So similar to what I'm expecting for EURUSD, I'm expecting it eventually to start selling off again to the downside and see the higher time frame trend continue. And I'm looking at potentially the market testing this level, and maybe from this level around 1.21 is where we see that bigger sell-off happen. But as of right now, the market has obviously created new lows, and we're finding our feet again a little bit for pound USD. So I am looking at the market similar to euro, having a bit of retracement, a bit downside. So some short-term sells look good to start the week, but for me, I'll still be interested in the buys to basically stay with the 4H trend until that structure breaks, and then I'll start looking for the bigger sells to the downside later on. So buys for me, I'm mainly looking at 1.65, so a retest of this level here will look very, very good indeed. See what type of price action we can get. Buys back up, basically back to the high, maybe might push it to 1.21. We'll see what type of price action we can get, but sales look good to start the week. Again, not really my type of trade, slightly aggressive against the trend here, but I am expecting us, because we are tapping to some areas here as well where we did form this kind of consolidation, had that big move, we are just about spiked into it. So I do expect us to see some downside and form that next high for the pullback, but again, not really my type of trade. So that's why I said maybe more of a short-term sell, take advantage of that move. But for me, I'll be waiting for the pullback for buys later on in the week, if we get there, of course, at around 1.16400. So pound USD later on expect to eventually kick back bearish and continue to the downside, but as of right now I'm waiting for a pullback to buy it back up again. Nothing too crazy, probably back to 1.2, which is the highs, and maybe 1.21 into that higher time frame monthly level, and then I'll start looking at some reversals. But for next week for pound, bit of a pullback, and then looking at some buys, hopefully back to highs. Okay, now onto pound CAD. So pound CAD this week, some more upside. I was looking for some sales up at these highs here. As you can see, the market did not respect that, broke through a couple times, a little bit messy, but on the daily time frame, clean break above, and the market's still pushing. So pound CAD is starting to form a bit of a bullish trend. Potentially could be the reversal of this, or maybe a deeper pullback. The reason I say that is because we are coming into higher time frame levels where I do think we could see strong rejection, maybe sell off again, because this is a very, very strong impulse, because we could be seeing a bit of a correction for the market later to turn bearish and continue that downtrend. But as of right now, the market is making some consistent higher highs and higher lows, daily, 4H and hourly, similar to what we're doing on pound USD as well. So for this one, bullish buys for now, looking at buys again. Key area that the market has formed here at 1.57200. So a pullback into this level will be great for some longs. Basically just looking for more continuation to the upside. As for targets, probably just keep it simple with the structures on the left here. Main reason because there's nothing clear to aim for right now. You know, we do have the psychological levels 1.6, 1.61, but there's nothing in front of us right now to target. So the most logical points to target are these lower swing highs on the left there at 1.598 and 1.614. So pound CAD, I know they're looking pretty bullish now, hoping to get a bit of a pullback later on, and looking at just taking advantage of the current market structure, which is definitely bullish, and just take advantage of that momentum. No need to look for sales right now. If you break through structure, then yes, but it's still pointing to the upside, so still keen with the buys. And the only level that really interests me is this level here. This would interest me, but I highly doubt we make it down there next week. I'll point it out to you guys, but maybe if something crazy happens, we could be trading down there. But for now, looking at buys from 1.574 back up to 1.5984 and 1.614 as well. So that's the plan going into next week for pound CAD, looking at some more buys for next week. Okay, so now onto pound yen. So pound yen this week, very corrective, as you can see. We've had this strong move to the downside, clearing out those lows, looking at a pullback for the market to sell off again to the downside, but it's been very corrective, and I haven't been interested. When the markets move like this, I tend to stay away, so I haven't really found a signal to enter the market, and still kind of correctly pushing higher. I have noticed a higher time frame level on the daily chart, which is this high back here around the 168, 167, 500 mark. This is where the market could potentially be pushing towards before giving us a nice sell-off. So I'm looking at some more upside for pound yen to test this level. Again, under these conditions, I'm not really keen to short. So if the momentum in the market can pick up a little bit to the upside, give us a nice double top up there, I'll be interested in finding some shorts here. But if it's still very corrective like this into that zone, I'll just wait for it to break structure and then give a low high somewhere to short, because shorting this in my experience hasn't really worked out too well for me. So I want price to give me some momentum to the downside, break through some structure, and then print me some lower highs. If not, I'm just going to let pound yen be. And if you break back above this zone, so back above this daily level here, then most likely we're going to go back to highs trading at around 171. So if that's the case, I'll flip my bias and actually look to buy pound yen back to the upside, because although we do have this bearish structure here on the 4H, don't let that be too don't let that blind you from what's going on in the higher time frames, which is pretty much still a bullish trend. It's not the cleanest bullish trend in the world. It's very choppy, a lot of strong down moves, so it's not the healthiest bullish trend in the world, but the trend is still bullish. This is a big fake move to the downside. You can tell by the big wick on the monthly. Big fake move to the downside. Market's now printed the higher highs and higher lows in the daily. This could be another higher low for the market to make another higher high. So I always do respect what's going on in the higher time frame. So that's why I'm not so willing either just to jump in short, because I know I am counter trend trading as well. So I'll see what we can get at 168. We'll be looking at some shorts up there. If my requirements don't get hit, I'll just let it be. Or if you can get that break structure to the downside, then I'll start to look to sell. But if you break through 168, then I'm looking for buys again. We'll wait for some type of higher low to form, and a push back up to 171 is where I'll be expecting the market to head to. So that's what I'm looking at pound yen. Still some caution on the shorts, but if you get above 168, we'll flip bullish and look for push into 171, and that is the plan going into next week. And now we've got gold. So gold is still in that kind of area where it looks like the market could look to reverse. I was talking quite a lot about gold towards the end of the week, and I did say to you guys, in that area we could be looking to roll over, but I do want to see this low get taken out first. And just before the week closed, it actually went and did that. So for me, gold shorts are looking good going into next week. I have been talking about gold breaking back above 1700, possible move to 1800, but we've been having a really hard time breaking through this level here. And it's a pretty strong level as well on the weekly chart. So I do expect the market to respect this level and see some downside. And you can see how the weekly candle is closed there. We've had this big bullish candle, and now the market's giving us a small bodied bearish candle. So all that strong momentum that we saw from that prior weekly candle has kind of depleted. The market's given us a bit of a wick to the upside and closed bearish. So momentum's depleted, good chance we could roll back over. Obvious areas we could be coming into is 1700 colossal level as well, which we've had a bit of a fake out to the downside here, and we didn't really get a retest either, so we could see the market come and get that retest, maybe go bullish again, or maybe get back underneath and head lower. But nonetheless, we are respecting key level, and looks like we could be in for a nice move to the downside. And with that full H breaker structure, shorts are starting to look very good. So for me, I'm looking at pullback, two areas I'm eyeing up, one a little bit more than the other, but we do have this kind of neckline, so to speak. So you got the left shoulder, the head, and the right shoulder. As you can see, obviously this will be the neckline, so shorts underneath that would look good, but it's just a little bit too close and a little bit too tightly knit. So I want to see if price can come back and respect that right shoulder again, and from there as well start looking for my sells. So up around here, I favor that setup a lot more than the neckline, so to speak. But nonetheless, still a great place to short. You know, all I do is just pick the areas that I want to short at. Doesn't mean the market's going to get there or the market's going to react with that level. It could well retest the neckline and sell off. But I'll read price action closer to when so London session on Monday. I'll see what happened close to the time of entry, and then I'll see if that level does look good. If not, I'll stick with that level up there. But nonetheless, looking for shorts and looking at a move potentially back down to 1700. You know, I have drawn it there to 1700, but you know, this target here is definitely a good place to take profit, and even coming up to the highs of consolidation here on the left as well, are a really good place to take profit. So keep in mind 1726, 1720, and the 1700 as for targets. But in terms of actual levels of interest, looking at the neckline there, trading around 1754 and 1763 for shorts, back down to lows for gold. So next up, we've got Bitcoin. So Bitcoin started to dry up a little bit. We've had a lot of momentum for this one not too long ago, but now it's kind of back to doing what I was doing prior to that, which is all this kind of choppy consolidation ranging market, which is, yeah, not too interesting. But nonetheless, we got the high time frames giving us, you know, what the market's been doing ever since, when was the high created? Ever since last year, November. So about a year ago, actually, because obviously we're November right now. So Bitcoin still falling to the downside. Clear area the market could be attracted towards is this region here, which is back down at 12k. You can see we're breaking through structure. This monthly candle hasn't closed yet, but if it does close any to how it's looking right now in 11 days and 5 hours, we could be seeing momentum pick up again back down to 12k. So yeah, the market is still extremely bearish here on the higher time frames. 4H a little bit more choppy, but sales do look good. For this one, looking at shorting, two areas of interest I have in mind, because right now the market's still extremely kind of dry, just moving sideways. You don't really want to be getting involved when the market's right now for trading anyway. So if you want to see a push to the upside, first maybe take out some of these minor lower highs, retest some structure there around 17,500. Shorts will look good, and a push back down to the downside, back down to 15,750 would look good. Again, we do have that 13k mark, but yeah, you probably want to do that in one go. And also 18,250 as well as an area to short from, which is this key area where we keep placing a lot of wicks. Might wick back into that as resistance before the big sell-off. But for Bitcoin, essentially the bias is to the downside. We're consistently making lower lows and lower highs, so expecting that theme to continue. But first, you do want to have a pullback and price kind of fake to the upside, maybe get some buyers trapped in first, because you don't really want to sell into that. There's nothing really there for you. The market's kind of squeezing in this kind of triangle pattern here, and yeah, it doesn't really look good to trade. So yeah, shorts from 17,500 and 18,250 look good. As for targets, keeping it simple, back down to lows. Could go further, so if you want to leave some to trickle or whatever for your trade kind of management plan, feel free. But nonetheless, lows look like a pretty good place to exit your trade, where we might see some buy step back in. So that's what we're looking at for Bitcoin. Shorts for this one, areas of interest, those two levels, and looking at push back down to lows for next week. And last but not least, our bonus pair, which is NZD USD for this week. So similar price action to NZD CAD and Aodu USD, looking for a major lower swing high to develop before a move to the downside. Again, on the higher time frames, we've still got this COVID low, which became so close to taking out. We've seen a pullback to the upside. Again, a very strong level here, trading in around 0.63, 0.62, which the market has just about tapped into. We could still potentially go a little bit deeper into the level, but nonetheless, as long as we hold that level, I'm expecting these COVID lows to eventually be taken out and this downtrend to continue. So in terms of bias and direction, pretty simple there for NZD USD. Going to the daily time frame, actually delete that because we know it's there, we don't necessarily need it right now. Going into the daily time frame, there's a few areas I've mapped out, which is that price swing low and this price swing low here as well, which the market is trading above right now. And again, on the 4H time frame, we still do have a bullish trend here of higher highs and higher lows. So sales right now are still a little bit too aggressive. Doesn't really matter what the higher time frames are doing. If you're going to consistently sell bullish markets, you're going to have a hard time, finding some good trades. So waiting for some structure to break, aka this level here. If we can break through that, we've got a bit of a double top pattern on our hands. Test 1, test 2, break through the neckline, which is that low, and then we can start looking for our sells on the retest of that, which is the daily prior swing low, this level here. Retest that, could see some nice sales step back into the market. And again, similar to Aodu USD, really nice area where that lower swing high could develop, coming into kind of a range between 0.786 and 0.618, and retesting that structure there as well. And if I zoom out, you can see the consistent lower swing highs the market has been printing, ever since potentially that one there as well, ever since February 21. So we're looking for that pattern just to continue, nothing too crazy, and to see another big down move there for NZD USD. So that's the thought process behind it on the higher time frames. Now we just need to wait for the 4H to kind of line up a little bit, because as things stand right now, we are still bullish, and there's not too much stopping us heading higher than that. So if I can see the market break through some structure, basically that low there, tap into 0.61 on a lower high, something like that, we'll look for shorts for trade to the downside. Again, not going for the home run. A push to this level looks good. That price swing high there, that will be a good target. Maybe at best coming back into that kind of area there. I'll probably take my profit and then look to get into another trade as we start giving us some lower swing highs. Might leave some to run, we'll see how things go, but that's the plan for NZD USD going into next week. So hopefully this video has provided you guys with some guidance going into next week. If you are liking what you see on the channel, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you haven't done already, and also hit the bell so you don't miss out on any uploads or streams in the future. But guys, I hope you had a great time watching the video. If you have any video suggestions in the future for me, or if you really like the video, let me know in the comments. But yeah, let me know in the comments. And yeah, guys, have a great time, have a great weekend, stay safe, and I'll catch you all next week.